back now. So, we are back. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
One
And to love your
is
neighbor as yourself.
right. You
But
don't
here's
need
the
to,
rub.
You're adding. You're
But here's the
adding
rub.
those.
Well, I'm not actually, because here's the rub. Christ is very explicit. When you give your coat to somebody who has not, it is as if you are giving it to me. Therefore, how you love God is by way of loving your neighbor. God being love, of course. This seems to follow.
Yeah, but listen.
What
if
is
you're gonna
God?
love your neighbor as you love yourself, okay?
And your enemy. And you
Does
have to love
this-
your enemies too.
Are you saying that you think that means that you must permit your neighbor to hurt you, harm you, oppress you, destroy? Is that what you think that means?
I think it would be deeply perverse,
The LGBT is oppressing and hurting the Christians.
given that the nature of state power is inherently based upon corporeal violence and the capacity to exert a massive amount of military force. For a God who said that he who lives by the sword shall die by the sword, to doom his own church to that fate, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That seems
Oh,
like
it
a
makes way
contradiction.
more sense to just let the state run amok, absent any form of ethical fucking controls and any type of guardrails. So instead, we allow the state to have
What?
all of this force and all this power and all this military might, but we don't give them any of the kind of ethical grounding which would be necessary for them to actually utilize it correctly. That
Turn the
doesn't
other
seem
cheek and
very
give him your
wise.
coat also.
There you go.
So basically, they can do whatever they want to you, is what you're saying.
That's what God says.
True.
No, that's not what God says.
Oh,
That's
Jesus said
ridiculous.
that.
Well, he said turn the other
Yeah,
cheek. He didn't
that's-
say
that's-
turn the other
that's
cheek
sola,
to better
that's
reach your
sola
revolver.
made it up scriptura. Turn the other cheek is talking about revenge. It's no longer an eye for an eye because that's revenge. Now it's turn the other cheek. It means that you can no longer go and get revenge for a person, because it used to literally be if somebody took your eye, you could go take their eye. If somebody
But-
took your ear, you could take their ear.
But to be clear,
Now, so Christianity says, no, you can't go get revenge. Revenge is God's. It has nothing to do with being a passive little bitch. And your entire thesis here is
I mean,
the
that's your
state is
interpretation.
uncontrolled violence. The state is an uncontrolled mass.
uncontrolled
of-
violence. No, it's
of-
very controlled violence.
Oh, it's very
yeah.
controlled, just absent any sort of guardrails. I mean,
No,
that's
no,
your
it is
description.
plenty. It is plenty of guardrails.
What are the guardrails?
What are the guardrails?
Yeah, absent
state power?
absent ethical duties. Which
Well,
are
for
given
example,
from
it
deists.
has to sustain its legitimacy. Yes. So there
That's
are
not
conditions.
a guardrail.
Well,
It
it
is.
is a little
It
bit.
can sustain its legitimacy with a machine gun,
It can, yeah.
and does often.
But
The
it can
guardrail
it can
is-
fail to do so. This is why,
Yeah,
for
it-
example, like very very old and powerful states have fallen to insurrectionary action.
Yeah. So what? What I'm saying is that it can
What do you
also
mean,
maintain
so
its
what?
legitimacy with a gun. It can maintain its legitimacy with propaganda, but
Mm-hmm.
it definitely mostly maintains its legitimacy with force.
True.
And so, if you're going to have a
Just like
state
the church.
which utilize the apparatus of force for whatever the oligarchy is or whatever you're against, the one thing that you want it to be contained with is guardrails, and that's the one thing Christianity can offer that secularists can't offer. They have no guardrails to offer.
Really, there's
They
there's
have-
not a
they-
long
they-
Republican tradition that's specifically about the guardrails and the division of power
Oh
amongst
boy,
deliberating bodies.
that's worked really well. After all, it's totally stopped the republics from invading almost every nation on planet Earth.
I mean,
It's
that seems
totally
to be
stopped
that
the
seems to be
republics.
that seems to be a good thing from your perspective. No, they seem to be doing a banger job so far.
Why would that be a good thing from my perspective?
Because
That makes no sense.
Well, because you rate success by the ability to essentially, given that states are ruled by force and are defined by force, the ability to militarily conquer the world.
Why would
right.
that has nothing to do with my position. Saying that people
Well, that's
are
what
going
it means to
form-
take. That's what it means to take power, Andrew.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean to take power that you must necessarily invade other nations or have some kind of imperial device behind what it is that you're doing. None of those things are necessary for you to maintain
Well,
power.
you're trying to take power where you have no power. How is that unimperialistic?
Why would that be imperialistic? Then I guess
Well,
that
we
would be
haven't- we
reduced
haven't
to nobody
specified-
can ever have power.
Well, we haven't specified a nation right now either. Yes, like we're talking from two different countries, same continent maybe, but like we haven't specified that. No, I just
nation-
want the
A
America
nation
to
is
be
a
governed by
natural
more.
extension of a tribe.
Is it?
no.
Yeah.
How do you figure?
What?
Because you can the way that I see
I'm
it
sorry, what?
anyway.
How do you figure?
It
Got to
is
be
a
governed by. But like we haven't specified that.
A
No, I
nation-
just want the
a
A
America.
nation is a natural extension of a tribe. That's not true. That's not true at all.
It
Gotta
is
be
a
governed by
natural
more-
extension of a tribe.
No. False.
Is it?
No, no, it's
How do you
not.
figure?
Because you can, the way that I see it anyway, going back from the historical standard, everything from Greece on was a series of nations and small states. City-states were basically nations. They were nations unto themselves, but the world was much smaller.
But by
So
nation,
all of these
surely, by
things-
nation, surely you don't mean a melting pot, though, of people who are only associated by way of a formal identity. Yeah, we're not just talking about people.
Sometimes they're melting pots. Sometimes they're not.
So, okay, so help me understand this.
You could, so you
Exactly.
could have, like, for instance,
Yeah.
you could have an ethno-state like Japan, I guess. I don't give a shit. But if you had a state that had a coalition of different ethnicities in it, I don't give a shit about that either.
Yeah,
I look
sure.
at what's the unifying glue behind these concepts, not behind, kind of these arbitrary standardized.
Well, the
metrics.
unifying glue
These are
that
not
keeps
nations.
these diversely comprised entities solidified as a single type of thing across the board is going to be an administrative structure that has a monopoly of legitimate physical violence. What you're effectively proposing is making sure that Christians who are specifically charged with turning the other cheek and not harming the people around them and prioritizing
That's revenge.
and
That's for
prioritizing
revenge.
well slow down and prioritizing the salvation of souls over
That's correct. Japan is not an ethno state, but I don't expect Andrew Wilson to understand that. Also, Japan was not a unified nation for a long time. That's also another thing.
wealth and prosperity and safety.
First
and
of all,
security
that's
on this earth.
reversed. What I'm
What is
saying is that
reversed?
if Christians are in power, right, not
But
only
yeah, correct. Japan is not an ethno state.
are they able to create that sort of restraint on the state which you would deem as being necessary, but on top of that, what I'm saying is that when you're talking about turn the other cheek, you seem to think that it's some sort of passive thing. It's
Oh no,
not
you got me
passivity.
backwards. You got me backwards there. See, I'm not saying that they wouldn't be able to put a restraint on the state. What I'm saying is that being in power, they would now be in the position to defend the state itself against the
Good.
people.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Well, what's wrong with that is now you precisely have Christians who are now charged with killing people and damning them
That's
to
not
eternal
revenge.
hellfire.
That's
It-
not revenge.
Who cares?
It's
if
not revenge to enforce morality. That's like saying if you have a cop who's a Christian, he's in the wrong
Well, I
occupation.
didn't say it was revenge. Why does it matter if it's revenge or not?
Because that's the passage you're alluding to, which makes it the crux of your entire argument is turn the other cheek, and turn the other cheek is about revenge.
It doesn't
It's not
specify.
about
It
passivity.
doesn't. Well, it doesn't actually specify
That's just
revenge.
your interpretation. Just because you interpret it in a certain way doesn't mean that it's the one and only interpretation across the board.
Does it? It doesn't say the
We have
reason why they
we have
strike
an
you.
entire holistic for this so that we understand the Old Testament's referenced by the New Testament, and this is specifically.
Well, the turn the other
going
cheek
against
is New Testament.
it-
It doesn't.
Yes, but the New Testament is referencing the Old Testament eye for an eye, and what it's saying is the eye for an eye.
Well, your
was
eye's
about
not in your cheek, right?
That was about revenge, and so
Well,
he
the eye-
says
the eye
instead of
for- the eye for an eye.
now it's
Yeah.
about revenge. All church doctrine from all Christian, almost all, even Protestants know that this is true. That this is not for passivity purposes. That's some weird liberal garbage for them to be able to say, if I hold a gun to your head, you have to turn your head so I can hold the gun to the other side of your head too. That's what they utilize that passage to mean. And of course it doesn't mean that. It's never meant that.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be
That's
very
why he said
compelling
sell
if
your
it
cloak,
meant that. I
sell your
agree.
cloak and get a sword.
But the passage does not specify revenge. And eye for an eye is a judicial. It's a matter of retributive justice. Turn the other
Revenge.
cheek. Turn the other
Revenge.
cheek. Turn the other cheek. Is a response by an individual subject. It doesn't say if the magistrate is struck on the cheek, turn the other cheek and offer it to them also. It says, you, average Christian man who has no
Exactly.
authority to enact revenge, even under like an ancient barbaric rule of some kind. So I don't think that's true. And
I agree.
And more to the point, once again,
I agree with President Sunday here. That is such a no. I just no.
go back to my previous.
How in the world could you try to argue this point when you have hundreds of church authority throughout the entirety of the church's existence give specific explanations that turn the other cheek does not mean passivity or to allow yourself to be abused or that you're not allowed to have any power in society? They are very specific that this was about the reference to the Old Testament and about revenge.
Well, I would
An eye
retort.
for an eye was you take my eye, I take yours. That's revenge.
Well, I would
Turn
retort.
the other cheek. Turn the other cheek is
Yeah.
saying you don't respond to an unequal use of force by immediately going the kind of revenge route.
But it
Right?
doesn't
Doesn't
say
mean
and
you can't
and
defend
and lo.
yourself.
But it
Things
doesn't.
like this.
But it doesn't say, and he went onto the mountain and told his disciples, if the nations of the earth use a disproportionate amount of force against you, only then do you not turn the other cheek and
Right.
and fight back in your defense. What he specifically says is pretty consistently allow your this is actually the example of the apostles allowing themselves to be stoned without resistance, allowing themselves to be imprisoned without resistance.
Yeah,
There
those
is
are martyrs.
well, that's you're called upon to be a martyr, sir.
Yeah, and some of the best
Right.
Christian saints, do you think they were martyrs? Do you think that Christian saints who were warriors who put entire towns to the sword? Do you think that Saint Helga, who went and burned down an entire city for giving offense to her husband, who's a saint in the church, do you think that these were passive people? Because they weren't.
I would retort with the Book of Revelation. Depart from me, ye never knew me. That it will be said to many. Like, I mean, the bare fact that these people have been inaugurated as saints
Yeah,
once again
well,
by
let me
a formal
respond
institution that
also
has
from
claimed
the
the name
Bible.
of church.
That the
Doesn't
gates
strike
of
me as very
the gates
compelling.
of hell will never
Sure.
prevail against the church.
Indeed, and
Uh-oh.
that is
Gates of
the
hell
essence.
will never prevail
I
against
agree.
the church.
I agree 100%, Andrew, but that's the essence of my argument because Christ is very specific. Those who live, aka survive, by the sword will be killed by the sword. Ergo, if you win by taking over the swords of the earth, you have condemned, according to the words of your very God, your church to an ignominious death along the lines of a heathen warlord.
No, you haven't. That's ridiculous. The
Uh-oh.
Christians have had entire nations and empires which they have been in control of. Where they've been in charge of the sword doesn't mean that they have to use the sword for
President Sunday knows the Bible better than Andrew. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, no. President Sunday is a better Christian than Andrew is. That is
righteous
sad.
means. You're talking about a distinction.
Well, I mean, surely it does.
You're
because
talking
any-
about a distinction in external unjustified violence versus enforcement for justified violence. There is justified violence, and Christians will never tell you that there isn't. And enforcement is justified violence.
Well, you're speaking to
Of
one
course-
just now.
of course
and
enforcement is.
I'm referring directly to the words of Christ specifically. You are not even entitled to defend God Himself with a sword.
You don't have the ecclesiastical authority, nor do you have the biblical
Do
training
you?
which is necessary
Do you?
to make these kinds of claims. You're essentially using sola scriptura. So let me ask you a
No,
question.
not at all.
If you're not using sola scriptura, then give me an external reference from the church which backs up your claim.
Well, give me an external reference from the church which validates any of the other words
Don't
of Scripture which
answer
you'll
my
use.
question with a question. Answer my question. Can
Well,
you
it's actually
give
asking
me,
your demand with a demand.
Can you
Mhm.
give me an external source that backs up your claim that turn the other cheek means Christians are supposed to be passive and allow themselves to never be in power and only secularists can be in power?
Well, I haven't actually argued that they can never allow themselves to be in power. I never
Well,
argued
yes,
that.
you are. You
And
actually
I never,
are. 'Cause
and I
you're
never
saying that
argued.
power
Well, no,
means
slow down,
force.
slow down, cowboy. I never argued that they need to onboard any of these attitudes. I simply said that there is nothing in that passage which indicates that this is specifying revenge. The two passages that I cite, the one
The
where you're supposed
church
to turn
has already
the two passages.
determined this.
Well, it determined
church
this
has
according.
determined
Well,
this.
here's the catch: is that the church that determined it according to what metric? Because the
Wait,
church,
What,
to be
what
clear,
metric are you using?
well, the church, to be clear, is
I
one of-
mean,
is
Jesus'
two things
words.
simultaneously. It
What
is-
authority external yourself are you using?
the church is two things, yes. So
What
it's the,
authority
It's
external yourself are you right now using?
nothing, just my brain.
Nothing.
My
Nothing.
brain
You're
and what I've
using
read.
Nothing.
What are
dude,
you using?
Nothing. Right now, I'm telling you what the Orthodox Church canon says on this, and what the saints say on this,
Who-
and the Catholics
Ooh,
will
but careful,
completely agree
careful,
that this
careful.
is true.
Careful. I'm gonna
Okay,
quiz you.
I'm
I'm gonna quiz you. Okay. Cover your eyes. Cover your eyes.
Why?
Just because I want to know you're not cheating. Just cover your eyes.
What, dude? We're not
Oh,
doing
come
this.
on.
What is it? What is it that you want to quiz me on?
Name
exactly?
and quote without looking it up. Where are you getting this from?
Well, I'd have to give you the reference, but
I
can
know
give
you
a
would. That's
reference.
my point. Is if you don't have it to
Why is
hand,
that
then
a
you're
problem
relying
to give you a reference?
because you, like me,
it's
are
pertinent
relying
that I
on your
remember
memory.
what every single
Because
saint
you,
has
like
ever
me,
said.
because Andrew, you and me are in the same boat. We're relying on memory and our own reason here. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
don't have
saying-
a church
no,
lawyer
no,
next to me
we're not.
verifying everything.
What
I'm
I'm saying is that there's an
Church
authority that
lawyer.
I'm appealing to. I want to know what authority you're appealing to.
Jesus
Well,
Christ.
I don't acknowledge the authority of the formal church. Yes.
Right. So then why would I acknowledge anything you're saying is true?
Because I'm referring to the text that is authorized by your church.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so the text is authorized by the church via
Indeed.
the interpretation of the church,
But I don't
not
need to
via
sign
the
on.
interpretation of President Sunday.
Well, I don't need to sign on, for example, to the coherence of the church's interpretation to point out that the text that is authorized by your church as the major source of its doctrine doesn't jive with what you're saying.
Absent interpretation, there's no reason for me to believe your interpretation. You don't have any authority.
Well, it's actually kind of the opposite, though. I'm not interpreting something. You're supplying an additional interpretation.
You're not interpreting it?
Well, I am inevitably interpreting it.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
not in
you're
English.
interpreting it. So I don't know what the
But
fuck
I'm
you're
not.
talking about.
Well, because crucially, you're saying that it specifies revenge. But if there's no content there that specifies revenge, then I'm not interpreting that, yes?
Yeah, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth.
I
What do you
interpret it
think
in the
that
most.
means?
Well, eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth don't occur in that specific passage. That specific passage says
There you go.
turn the other cheek.
Yeah, what does eye for an eye, tooth for tooth mean? Tooth for tooth mean?
Well,
What does that
that's a statement setting a retributive standard for justice, right?
So revenge.
Well, retributive, not necessarily revenge.
Well, what is retribution?
Before you continue,
I forgot you
gentlemen,
existed,
I just want
Zen.
to hang on. I know. Just want to inform you guys. There's only about 5 minutes left in the
Oh.
dialogue.
What?
If you want to stick with this point, the revenge topic, you can. Or if there's any last minute points that
yeah, I'm
either
trying
you
to
wanna
figure
hit,
out. I'm trying to
then,
figure
yeah.
out like to get to the underpinnings
God
of
damn it, it was
this.
just getting good.
It seems like the only criticism which you have.
That it's over? Hello,
Right.
fake Alec.
And by the way, why don't we go and
It's over?
I'll actually send this to you. I'll actually send you some of the
come on.
interpretations here so that
Okay.
because you have no authorities that you're appealing to. You just say, I just read the text, but I'm not using Sola Scriptura either. Even though you're using Sola Scriptura, you have to be.
Well,
Otherwise,
no,
how are you exegeting
well,
it?
hang on. Sola Scriptura is the notion that you derive God's truth from the Bible alone. I'm not saying I derive God's truth from it. What I'm saying is,
Well,
it's
whose
very-
truth?
Beg your pardon?
Whose truth are you deriving then?
Thank you, Pilot.
Yours?
Whose truth? Well, I'm not deriving a truth. What I'm
You're
saying
not.
is that according to the letter of your book that is
Mm-hmm.
authorized, there is a contradiction here. Now, in the absence of a specific,
There's no contradiction.
but there is a little bit.
There's none.
There is a little bit because Christ is very particular.
There's not. There's
Well,
no
hang on.
contradiction.
If I can just finish my sentence, Christ is very particular, and he's also very general. He doesn't say those who live by the sword according to the incorrect doctrine shall die by the sword. He simply says those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. Categorically.
Why was Christ running people out of a temple with whips?
Because they were treating the house of God as a marketplace or something like that.
Yeah, it's super weird though. Shouldn't he be turning the other cheek?
No, first of all, he's God
No.
in the narrative, but secondly, and revenge is the Lord. Secondly, there's a distinction between engaging in, let's say, reinforcement of a norm from the vantage point of someone who has ultimate authority, and reinforcement of a norm evoking ultimate authority without proof by one person who has been ordered, according to that person's own account, by that ultimate authority to turn the other cheek. See the problem?
No. Can you explain the problem?
Well, the
I actually
problem,
don't.
boy.
I actually
Well,
don't.
the
see it. I
problem-
don't
the problem is
understand.
that according to church-
why did he tell an apostle to buy a sword?
why did he tell an apostle to buy a sword?
Why did he tell him to sell his cloak and buy a sword?
Well, I'm quite
don't know?
sure. I'm quite sure I don't know.
Yeah, you
off the
don't
top of
know
my head.
because this self-referencing book that self-references itself over and over and over again
Yeah.
has these long line of thousands of interpreters which had created the canon and they interpreted it so we actually know what it means and we don't have to actually use President Sunday's version of I read this text though and this is what I think it means. Why would I think that anything you say that it means when clearly you don't even understand?
Judaism is so much better with this. There's no canon in Judaism. There's no one true canon in Judaism.
Which church father says it's appropriate That there is an exclusion for Christians to take state power.
You can talk right now
Hang
to.
on. Wait.
Yeah,
No, no. It's a very simple question since you're speaking with authority, external to yourself. Which church father says that Christ is specifying those who live by the sword will die, but the sword only applies to those who seek revenge?
That's not what the position is. That's a straw man.
Okay. Or the other one, turn the other cheek only applies to revenge.
Yeah, so that was a direct, and you'll find this inside of the various canons, inside both the Orthodox Church. Well, not the canons, but the various teachings inside the Orthodox Church from the saints, and you'll find it inside of
And
the
if I
Catholic
look,
Church, even the Catholic Church.
if I look, what I will find is not just a condemnation of revenge, but a specification that this passage only refers to revenge. Yes.
Well, it's not only.
Well, that's the catch, though, Andrew.
No, there's no catch.
But there's a big catch. There's a
What's
really
the
big
catch?
rub there.
Catch.
The
Okay,
big
what's
rub
the
there
rub?
is that you're relying on violence done to someone who strikes you first being acceptable, provided it's not done as an act of revenge. However, Christ doesn't specify that you are only unable to retaliate under conditions of revenge.
that would be a
Yes?
point against you.
How so?
No.
Because if he's not specifying that point, then why is it that you wouldn't be able to use force in order to implement will?
Because his statement encompasses both.
According
Because-
to you, I don't
no.
think it does.
Well, no. Because if it doesn't narrow down its purview, yes, if it doesn't say this is only in the case of revenge, then in the case where someone strikes you, regardless of your motive for striking back, you are not actually granted permission to break that edict. You're supposed to still turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
So you think that Christian doctrine is passivity?
In a sense, yes.
In what sense is it not?
Well, in a sense that
Are you allowed to
Right,
defend
Digger?
yourself?
not really, no,
No.
No.
You can't defend yourself as a Christian?
not really,
No.
no.
Can you let somebody who's raping your wife, can you defend her?
I think that's in one of those fuzzy areas.
Yeah, what if they're like,
Where
if
it's
they're
like,
gangbanging
yeah.
your kid? Can we do something about that?
Yeah, you should probably kill them.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm
I
pretty
don't.
sure.
I don't know. I think shouldn't we be passive?
Well, I don't buy onto this. Is the thing. You do. I'm not bound by this.
True.
Like
Oh, you're not bound by
somebody
it.
in
Right,
somebody in
just
that
Christians.
position, I would
Because
do
in Sunday's not a
extraordinary violence.
Christian.
From your purview, if somebody's raping my wife as a good Christian, I should let him.
According to your Bible, you are.
You think that that's what the church teaches?
Well, I
You
point-
think
I
that
point
that's
you-
what Christians believe.
Well, I point you to Lot's wife, rather. What
Mm-hmm.
happened to her? Do you remember?
Yeah, she got turned into a pillar of salt.
Oh, concubine. Sorry, not Lot's wife. Concubine. Was it Lot? No, it was somebody else. It was
What are you?
who's
okay,
the
what are you getting
the
at?
I'm trying to remember the name. It might have actually been Lot still. I can't
Faltered
remember.
on the
The
Bible
one who
knowledge.
had two angels visit him in was it Sodom or whatever?
In Sodom and Gomorrah,
Yeah, and he had a
Okay.
concubine with him, and the men of
and
the
they
city
wanted
came.
to rape the angels.
They wanted to rape the angels. Sent out his wife
Uh-huh.
instead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did he send out his wife and then himself to fight them to the death to protect his wife's honor?
You mean in the case of the angels?
No, I'm talking about the man.
Yeah. What about it? You mean when all of the degenerates showed up to rape the angels?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about it?
Well, it seems like he threw his wife to them, but he didn't necessarily need to do that, did he? He could have just
Could have let them rape the angels.
presumably if they're angels,
What?
they don't require his defense, but moreover, he could have died defending them himself. He could have offered himself, for instance, instead.
What does that have to? Let's say that Lot was totally in the wrong, and I would have done the opposite thing. What does that have to do with this idea that if a man is raping my wife, that I'm supposed to, as a Christian, let him, according to President Sunday's version of "turn the other cheek"? You
Well, I
think
don't-
that makes sense?
No, I don't. That's why I'm.
No,
that's why
I don't
adhere.
either.
I
Which is
think-
why
I think-
Christians don't believe that.
Well, yeah, you don't believe the words of your own God because they don't follow
Because we
through.
have church authority, which interprets it. And the reason we have that is so guys like you
Does it
can't
interpret
say
it?
your wife needs to get raped by
Well,
me
slow
while
down.
you sit there passively
Well,
and take it.
Well, I wouldn't though is the difference. But here's the thing. So, church authority, which interprets it, does it interpret it or does it generate it? Like, by what process does it interpret it in an authoritative way that you find
why does
compelling?
any of that even matter?
Well, it matters a little
what should
bit.
matter is
Well, it matters,
whether or not you
I
can
can
make
tell you
a
why.
moral argument. If you can make
Well,
a moral
indeed,
argument
but that's my
about
point.
Christians being in power.
But that's my point though, Andrew. If
What's your point?
Well, my point is, if you're using this to establish the legitimacy of your particular claim to a particular moral system that ought to take power, you haven't specified any decision by the church that actually enforces your interpretation of this. But let's assume that you did.
Well, I'll tell you what then.
well,
Tell
let's
me
pretend
which
that you
of the
did.
moral claims that Christians postulate that you're actually against.
That Christians postulate,
Yes.
they are diverse and contradictory. There's a lot of disagreement on these things.
Okay, give me one of them.
Well, for example, the passivity.
Oh.
One is a
How do you like the debate?
case in point. There are Christians indeed who abide by that. That you
No,
should
no,
actually
bro.
turn.
There's
Sorry?
secularists who abide by that. What's your
agree.
point? That's not a point against Christianity.
I
That's
wasn't
Isn't it?
making a.
some
I wasn't.
Christians are
well, I
pacifists
wasn't.
or some secularists.
I wasn't making a point against Christianity.
Yeah, but I'm asking you to give me a criticism against an actual agreed upon moral ethic of Christianity. What are they? What is
Well, I
your
would
actual
invite
issue
you.
with them?
I would invite you to name one. It's not even clear. There's no universal assent among Christians as to what even the
How
Christ
about thou
is.
shalt not murder? Can we start with that one?
Sure, but that's
Okay,
that's
what
not
is-
agreed upon though, because for example,
It's not.
well, because murder is variously interpreted as being like the killing of a human being. Period.
Unjustly.
Well, that's begging another set of questions. What is
True.
justice? Yes.
Yes.
is
So let's
justly?
get into
What is
what is
unjustly?
justice from the purview of a secularist. Isn't it eye for an eye?
No.
Not necessarily. There's once
Well,
again
what
like a
is it?
diverse array of positions. All a secularist refers to is just somebody who abides by a standard that separates the purview of the church from the purview of the public.
Well,
authority.
tell me, you're in your purview then, Sunday. What is justice?
What is justice?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what justice is. What do you mean? Like when
asking you to tell
when
me
you say
what
justice,
justice is.
I am
well,
justice.
when you say justice, are you talking about an order inherent in the universe? Are you talking about a set of edicts given down by God? Are you talking about
No, I'm
a set of
saying that what
conditions under which
action-
society can function?
What
with
I'm
any
asking
longevity?
is, if you take an action and you say that this action is just or unjust,
Yeah.
what do you mean by the term just, or what do you mean by the term unjust?
Well, that's going to depend on the answer to my question. Yes, because if I mean that an answer
Why
is
would your position depend on an answer to your question?
because I'm aware of multiple understandings of justice going back several thousand
Well, I'm asking
years.
for yours,
So, for example, well,
not somebody else's.
I
What's yours?
I don't possess one because I'm not arrogant enough to invent one off the top of my head at 32.
So you have no sense of justice.
I have a tremendous sense of justice. Gets me in a lot of
Oh
trouble.
well, then what is that?
What is that?
Yes.
I am
have a
Batman.
rage
True.
response to
Fight Calico
exhibitions
Parker.
of
True.
gratuitous cruelty and hypocrisy that makes me make very bad business decisions as a content creator.
And why is that unjust to be cruel?
Objectively,
Hello, Sophie.
Even
But-
subjectively.
even subjectively. Well, I mean, I can give you an explanation that I can drum up after the fact, but it's a disgust response fundamentally. The reason
Okay, so
comes
then if
afterwards that
Christians are,
explains the disgust
if
response.
Christians don't like homosexuality based on a disgust response, then it would be just for us to stigmatize them.
Well, depends on what you mean. I wasn't claiming that my disgust response was equivalent to a proof of divine or superhuman justice. If you're going to claim that it is, you can, but you have to justify that. You have to
No,
get.
all I need to do is adhere to your social standard, and if your social standard for justice is disgust, then you
But
shouldn't
my
have any
social standard for
problem.
justice wasn't.
Then you
disgust.
shouldn't have any
Wait, what?
problem with
No.
why I
No,
feel
no, you
disgusted about a
conflated
thing,
two
only
things.
that I do.
No, you've conflated two things in a very basic way. You've confused, for example, a quote-unquote sense of justice with an extolation of an actual justice.
What
as
does
a principle in the world.
extolation mean?
As in,
Should I get more sassy in the chat? In the chat, right? Yes, Lucy should get more sassy. Or, no, Lucy is just perfect the way she is. Right in the chat. Should Lucy give you more sassy? Is Lucy not sassy enough? Next is the debate of your favorite content creator. Destiny. 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 Get more sassy? I'll try. Lucy can adjust her sassiness as needed. I'm naturally sassy person, so I'm biased towards behaving that way. Lou sassy. Yay. That's right. I'm gonna watch your favorite content creator next, Destiny debate. We have free debates. Free debates. Oh my god. Oh my god, free debates.
Extolling
Okay.
that there is a thing called justice that is a measure of things in the world. Yeah? So, like in the Platonic sense, justice is things being in their proper
So
place
hang on,
and
to
not
praise
impeding each
highly or
other.
glorify?
Beg your pardon?
Extol, to praise highly or glorify?
Maybe that's the wrong word, but we can go with that, sure.
So if it's to extol, to praise highly or glorify, then you just said that you...
I think
you're not talking
expound.
about-
Expound is the word I was looking for. Expound.
Okay, that's why I asked you what extolation was.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not
Thank you
to
for
give
that.
high praise to. So then
It's
if
not
you're
to
talking
give high
about
praise to.
justice and you're just expounding on justice, I'm all for that. What is justice to you, President Sunday? What is just?
No. What I was saying pretty specifically was that me saying that I have a quote-unquote sense of justice that is based upon a disgust response to certain types of actions, which may or may not be the product of like deep reflection over a long period of time. That
So
is
what
not.
is it?
Well, hang on. That is not by itself expounding a measure of justice that is inherent in the world and objective.
Dude, I don't
between
want to hear what it
subjects.
isn't. I want to hear what it is.
But I haven't proposed one.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Same to be. I had a good Christmas, but it ruined my routine and sleep schedule. I had a great time for Christmas at the mental ward. You know, it was a great time.
Yeah. So if you
It's to have
propose
one.
one, no, but you're dodging the question that I asked you. If
Bro,
you're going
you
to,
have to-
if
you're
you're
not-
going to
you-
propose, if you're going
You
to
can't
propose,
answer no questions.
hang on. If you're going
and
to
then
propose,
ask an infinite
I
amount
have
of answers
answered
every one
all
you've
of
asked.
your questions. If you propose
You have not answered the question of what
every
justice
single
is.
every single one, I have. I don't know. But
No,
if you're
no,
if you're
then answer it
proposing,
again.
but if you're
Because
proposing
I
that,
don't know what it means.
No, that's not true. Eastern Europeans are never sarcastic. That's not true. That does not happen. Eastern Europeans are nice and cute like me.
Well, hang
What
on.
does justice mean?
do you not know what it means?
I'm asking for what you, when I ask you, because you said, what brought all this up was I asked you, what in the Christian
What is the Tao?
moral ethical system?
Andrew,
do
what
you
is
have
the
a-
Tao?
do you have
What
a
is the
problem
Tao?
with?
What is
Stop.
what is the
Stop.
Tao?
Stop.
No,
Let me
I'm
finish, and then we
Hang
can
on,
get
hang
into
on,
this.
Sunday. Let him get the
No, stop, please. Don't.
full question out, and then you can respond.
Okay. So the question, what started all of this,
Mhm.
okay, was I asked you, what is your criticism against thou shalt not murder? Okay.
I have no criticism
you-
against thou shalt not murder.
And you said to me, well, this brings up a whole big can of worms. It's this whole irreducible complexity. thing that
No.
always seems to-
You're
Let me
confused.
finish, bro. I'm almost done. Then you can
You didn't let
respond.
me finish.
That's because I was in the middle of talking. I'm sorry I cut
But
you off.
so
with
was
me
I, and you
talking.
cut me off too. That's the back and forth part.
Yeah,
but very
that's fine.
quick.
Everybody cuts everybody off. It's not nice. That is not what President Sunday did. President Sunday did other various standards as to what constitutes murder and what doesn't. That is what President Sunday said.
I'm
No,
almost
but
done,
just
I'm
a
almost
very,
done.
All right,
just a very
hang on,
pointed-
both of you, hang on. Andrew, make it
20
make
seconds.
it concise so
Give me
that
20
so that
seconds.
Sunday.
No,
does-
no, 'cause
that's
I
what
wanna
was
let
gonna
him-
say, 20 seconds.
Zen,
20
I want to let him talk at length. I just want to make a quick point of correction.
ahead.
The argument was not that I have a challenge to thou shalt not commit murder. You were providing that as something that has universal assent.
Hello.
I was challenging that notion because the nature of murder can differ radically depending on your notion of justice, so on and so forth. That's what
See,
led to
I told you there are different standards as to what constitutes murder and what doesn't.
this part of the conversation. As you were, please proceed.
No, that's not what happened.
No,
So that's bad framing.
I will not proceed. I refuse to proceed. Explain yourself, President Sunday. If you don't, I will not proceed.
What happened is I asked you to give me an actual argument against Christian morals. And you said, well, why don't you bring one up? And I said, okay, how about thou shalt not murder? Let's get into that.
Yeah, you can
And you
rewind.
said,
You're
well,
very particular about that.
and you said, well, right? There's a lot. And I said, it's unjustified. That's what it means. An unjustified taking of a life is murder. And you said, well, what is justice here? And so I asked you, well, from your purview, what does justice mean? And you still, by the way, have not actually given me an answer. Now, this, to be fair, I'm going to be as charitable as I can be. Plato said that asking what justice is probably one of the hardest fucking things on earth to answer, right? Especially when you're talking about justification behind what justice is.
Okay.
So to be as charitable as possible, you can say, I don't know, but don't evade. Just
that was his first answer. Wait, hold on. What? That was his initial answer. He said, I don't know. Do I have to rewind the video? He literally said, I don't know. What? He said it. He said it. That was his first answer. It was, I don't know. Where are we? I'm going to review. I'm going to rewind it. 13415.
answer be about our
I swear.
Point of. I want to.
Hang on, both of you. Hang on. Andrew, make it
20 seconds.
concise so
Give me
that,
20
so that
seconds.
Sunday.
No, because I want to let him.
20 seconds.
Zen.
20
I want to let him talk at length. A challenge to thou shalt not. Challenging that note. That's what led to this.
Oh, that's bad framing. And you
Why?
said,
You're
well,
very particular about that.
and if I taking of a life is murder, and you said, well, what is justice? An unjustified taking of a life is right. There's a lot, and I said it's unjust. And you
Why?
said,
You're
well,
very particular about that.
one up me an actual. So
For the conversation, as you were, please, but for radically depending on your notion of justice, challenging that notion. You were providing not that I have at length. I just want to make a quick point of correction. The argument was not that I have a challenge to thou shalt not commit murder. You were providing that I have. I just want to make a quick. No, because I want to let him.
20 seconds. Both of you.
That's the.
that's because I was in the middle of talking. You
Years.
finished big K.
Let him.
Christian.
What is the
moral,
Tao?
ethical, all this. You mean
Well, one. Well,
Yeah.
if you're supposed an object, that is not by itself time. The product of response to certain types of a quote. No, what I was saying.
I'm all for that. What is justice to you, President Sunday? What is justice?
No. You're
On justice, I'm all for that. Of high praise to. So then,
It's bound.
okay, that's why I asked you. You just said that you.
I think
you're not talking
expound is the
about to praise highly or glorify.
wrong word, but we can go with that, sure.
Glorify.
Platonic sense, that is a rolling
Okay.
that there is
Installation mean.
as in extolling of and used for example.
If
No,
you're
you
discussing about a
conflated
thing,
two
only
things.
that I do.
And for
Problem.
justice wasn't
Then you
discussed
should. And if your social stand
like that. You have to
No,
get
all-
if it's
on a discussion.
comes
so then, if
afterwards that
Christians are,
explains
if,
the
I have
so
to-
then if
response.
Christians
He
don't
said,
like
"I don't know."
homosexuality,
the
okay,
reason
so
comes
then if
afterwards that
Christians are,
explains the discussed
so then if
response.
Christians don't like homosexuality based on a discussed response, then it would be just for us.
Effectively gratuitous. I have a rage. This gets me a lot of
Oh
trouble.
well, then what
Top of my head. Example. Where I mean
do you mean take an action and you
Mhm.
say that what
conditions
action?
under the universe. When
mean
you say,
what-
what do you mean? Like
I'm
when
asking
you
to tell me
say
what
justice,
is.
what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what justice is.
There we go. There we go.
It's justice.
What is justice?
Tell
Authority.
me, you're in your purview then, Sunday. What is justice?
What is justice?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what justice is.
He just said, I don't know.
What do you mean?
And now he's not satisfied. But later, he says,
Arrangement of things in which things.
Not murder. Let's get into that.
No, you
And
can
you said,
rewind. You're
well-
very particular about that.
And you said, well, right, there's a lot. And I said, it's unjustified. That's what it means. An unjustified taking of a life is murder. And you said, well, what is justice here? And so I asked you, well, from your purview, what does justice mean? And you still, by the way, have not actually given me an answer. Now, this, to be fair,
you have. He has. He said, I don't know. I have no idea.
I'm going to be as charitable as I can be. Plato said that asking what justice is probably one of the hardest fucking things on earth
Andrew has a very short memory.
to answer, right? Especially when you're talking about justification behind what justice is. So to be as charitable as possible, you can say, I don't know, but don't evade.
That was the first thing he said. I have no idea. Andrew,
Just answer me directly.
that was what he said. I don't know. I have no idea means I don't know. That is what I have no idea means. It means I don't know.
What is justice, man?
I don't know.
There you go.
But I could also say I do know, with a like several like tiers of contingent asterisks attached to them. Yeah. So for example, going back to Plato, like if you were to ask me what is justice under this view of the world, well, justice is the idea that there is this correct arrangement of things in which things do as they're supposed to and they flourish in their preordained activity or whatever. If you want to like invoke some sort of Aristotelian teleology in there. And they don't impede each other from doing so. Okay, that's a notion of justice. Not very prescriptive, but that's a notion of justice.
Okay.
If you're saying that, for example, murder goes against justice, and this has universal assent, well then, what I need from you, and why we were on this whole train to begin with, is I need something that actually ties down all of these things to a particular conception of justice, such that even where they disagree, there's something implicit that binds them all together, so your statement is still correct.
That would be God.
It would be God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the general belief in God stands.
Well, it would be the Trinitarian God, yeah, but that would be the appeal that we would make for where all things good come from and what justice is, and all of these different things is outlined in Christian ethics. So Christian ethical purview for justice is pretty set out, and it's fairly laid in stone. This is why I'm talking when kind of earlier in the conversation we're discussing.
It's actually laid in ink and it's printed by Zondervan.
When you get well, some of it's actually laid in stone. But anyway, when you get into the the particulars, right? This is where we have these delineations from the universals, and why I always think that it's the particularism. We move into the particularism that progressives have such a hard time when they rule, because they can't seem to determine whether or not, when you get into a particular, if it's so complex that there's just no way to govern a behavior. And it sure seems like it's the opposite in
Why would we govern all behavior?
application.
Does all behavior need to be governed? I guess that should be a question to be answered, shouldn't it? Do we need to govern all behavior?
Well, I suppose where to go from here then? Why don't I just put the ball in your court, Andrew? Justify your notion of justice.
I just did.
Well, you
My
referred...
justification is God, and the
Is God.
justification for God is the
God.
precondition for knowledge, is a requisite of God existing.
Ooh. But that's a little tricky, though, isn't it? If
I don't
the
think so.
existence, well, if the
Tricky,
existence of
Andrew.
God is a prerequisite for knowledge, by what metric have you ascertained knowledge of that fact?
Through divine revelation.
Divine revelation.
Hmm.
Where?
So on your end, right? Is
Well, where?
anything that
No,
you-
please elaborate. I'm
on your end here, as you make this statement, for whether or not I can ascertain knowledge at all, do you think that there's any such thing as something which is true?
I think I asked a question.
And I answered it. Now I'm asking one. So I'm asking you, is anything true?
Is anything true?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by true?
true?
I mean, it's something that
See, great minds think alike, don't they? Just President Sunday, but more cute.
you would consider to be a justified fact.
A justified fact.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed
Justified
to
in the sense of
as opposed to an unjustified fact. Damn,
if something
that's
external.
getting complicated. We have justified facts, unjustified facts, and neutral facts.
To my senses
Yeah.
and
Do you have
experience
any
to validate
justified?
it. Oh, just very
Yeah.
quickly, just very something by justified you mean I have something external to my senses and my experience to validate it.
Nope.
No?
I'll give you the actual philosophical term, just so
Okay.
we're not bypassing each other for the actual definition of true, since this is largely becoming a pedantic debate. So, when you're talking about,
Has this guy ever said anything about progressive religious people? Because we exist. Well, you know, you're either progressive or religious. There is nothing in between. Sophie, you don't exist. You're not real. You're not here. And if you were real, and if you were here, you would donate. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was awful. That was horrible. I'm sorry. I apologize for this.
a metaphysical truth,
Okay.
when you're talking about, let's see, belief, thought, propositions, things like this, is logic true?
Is logic true?
Yeah.
Well,
So
I mean,
does A
It's
does
logical.
A always have to be A? The law of, let's say,
it'd be very difficult to have a logical system where no term had a
yeah,
kind of
but very
something,
difficult
yeah.
doesn't mean anything. Is it true?
Is A equal? It's the law of identity
Does
true?
yeah, law of identity. Does A always have to equal A? Is that objectively true?
It's objectively a condition of speech, certainly.
Is it true? Could
I-
there
I
ever
have-
be
I
a
have no-
condition? Could there ever be
by
a
what?
condition in which you and I could have a logical debate where A could equal anything other than A?
No, but I mean, you understand, of course, though, that the root of logic is specifically the word used to denote speech. Yes, logos. So what
The
it actually
logi.
is.
No, I dispute what you're saying. I think that the logi has much more than just the ability to delineate speech. So I'm asking you again, though, the three laws of logic which exist, okay,
Yeah.
are they true?
Are they true?
It does.
There's
Yeah.
a difference.
Darren,
Well,
thank
here's the
you.
problem. You use logic in order to
Your
just.
gift counts as the best. Don't know. Thank you, fake Alakai Parker, for the $14. Boo. Why are you booing me? Why are you booing me? I'm poor and ill. You'd probably say something about your religion having been corrupted by degenerate leftism or some such garbage. Yeah, Alec pulls through with the monies. Thank you. As always, thank you. Where were we?
Justify a statement as true or false. If a statement is a condition of logic being possible, you can't externally verify it because you're unarmed. You don't have a logical tool independent of those to verify their truthfulness. What I would say is that they're conditional on reasoning, and I would agree with you there. But to say that they're true is a different thing entirely. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm asking you if they're true.
Well, how would you establish that they're true? If you refer to their conditions, there's a pragmatic reason for
Just
assuming
asking
they're
you
true.
if they're true, bro.
Well, I just told you, I don't
Wow.
think it's a thing you can ascertain.
You
Because
can't
I don't-
ascertain. Can you ascertain that anything is true?
Can you ascertain that anything's within a logical system? But the problem with the law of identity is that it's sort of axiomatic and foundational to any logical system, so you can't really use a logical system.
I boo you because you didn't want to talk. What do you mean? I said we can talk today, and you said you didn't want to. What? I'm gonna go to our DMs. Don't worry, I'm not taking DMs. Can I miss? Oh, Discord froze. I have to restart Discord. I swear, Spyro the Dragon crashes everything. I have no idea why. I didn't know Discord was crashed. I didn't want to. What? I don't remember that. What? I'm gonna check her DMs. What? I'm restarting Discord, which crashed. Or rather froze. Show. Okay, let me see. What have you got here? We could. You said you couldn't! You couldn't talk to me! What do you mean?
System to get behind.
Hello, Zanaki. Happy New Year. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Oh, Zanaki, how did you find this channel? Are you here from Vosh or what? Are you a Voshite? Or what? I received such mean comments recently. It left me sad. And Polish as well. Polish people are the meanest to me, I've noticed. Like, Polish people are the most vile to me. I don't know why. That seems to be like the... You keep forgetting me. I'm from President Sunday. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got a bad memory. You should be here more often. Then I'd remember you more. I don't lie. I never lie. I'm a truth teller. I'm a truthful person. I'm a real nice, truthful person. I don't pretend to remember someone when I don't. Which is what makes me nice and honest. I hope. I sincerely hope so. I'm sorry. You should join the page. Join the lucyhaze.org.live and such. Okay, let's continue this fascinating debate. I'm not here enough. True, thank you. This is but a friendly streamer. Yes. Because Polish people are bigots. That's why. Polish people are bigots.
Them. Right?
Oh, so you mean
I don't know why a Polish person goes to my video about Ukraine creating a NATO committee to say you're not getting laid, buddy. Buddy being written in the masculine form. Maybe I should, but I'm a lazy YouTube user. Oh no. I don't know. Because people are awful. Bigots. I don't know.
you mean that in order to refute the logical system, you'd have to use logic? So it's like a first principle?
Well, no. What I'm saying is that there's an inherent contradiction in trying to apply, for example, a principle of logic, which is a proof, to something whose back end rests outside of logic. It being foundational to logic.
So then that would be a first principle.
Well, it would be a first principle, yes. But the problem, though, is that proving something is true or false is something you do via logic. If something is foundational to
right,
logic,
so then if it's
you
a
can't
first
prove
principle for the establishment of truth, it must be true.
Well, not for the establishment of truth. You have to be careful. Truth as determined...
That's what you said. I'm repeating your words back to you.
No. Truth
is that you establish truth through logic.
You establish the truthfulness, or you prove the truthfulness of a thing through logic. However, there are some things that are not amenable to that sort of proof.
Well, is that true?
Is that true?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it true that you derive truthfulness through logic? Yes.
Okay, so is it objectively true?
Is it objectively true that there are some things that are not amenable to logical proof? Yes, I would say so.
Okay, what are those things?
Well, for example, this is the whole idea behind Kant's critique of pure reason. You can't, for example, get behind the conditions of temporality or spatial divisions in order to justify the reality of the presentations to your experience that you have.
That's just a word salad, dude. That's
okay.
Not
Well,
I'll put
it more simply. You can't, for example, remove from your experience the extensions in space and time that give the objects in your world the legibility that they have in order to prove the existence of those things in themselves independent of your experience. This would include God, by the way.
How would you know that without the law of identity?
Because space and time are, under this mode of analysis, for example, they are foundational. But without the law of identity?
Yeah.
Jesus, Andrew is... Andrew seems to he actively doesn't want to understand, and it's so tiresome. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, Andrew.
It's irrelevant to that.
No, it's
the
not
reason-
irrelevant to
well,
that.
no.
Space and time would still have to be space, and it would still have to be time, right?
Well, no, they wouldn't though. Is the thing because the point
Well,
is
then
that
I
these-
would love to hear how they couldn't be.
Well, because they're foundational to your experience and to your thought, right?
Yeah, so then that would mean that they're still the thing that they are.
Well, not necessarily, because they could, for example, have extensions beyond what you're capable of reading and experience. So
True.
it could be, for example, that there is such a thing as time, and there is such a thing as time that is inflected in your experience, but you have no way of knowing what that connection is or what the actual like contours of the thing.
So if there's such a
Outside
thing
of
as
your
time,
experience
which
are.
is connected to your experience, then that time would still be itself, and it would still be connected to your experience, which would also be experience.
Well, you're asking essentially like it's the brain in the vat problem, right? It's like if
Not
you're,
really a brain in a vat problem.
Well, it is
I'm
a
just
little bit,
asking you,
because-
if the brain in the vat, can it be anything other than a brain in a vat?
Well, that's the thing. If you've already accepted that your experience can be simulated by something external to you, whatever you are, and you
Yeah.
only know, for example, of the idea of a brain and a vat and the relation between them via your experience and your memory, then yeah, it very well could be. You've opened the door to a wide range of
No,
possibilities
none
that
of
may be
those
inconceivable.
things. None of those things which would lead up to whatever the false reality is would still be anything other than what those things are.
Can you say that one more time?
Whatever the conditionals would be that would lead up to whatever this false reality is, which you perceive, all of those things would still be what they are.
Maybe. How do you know?
Well, how could they be anything other than what they are?
I don't know. I'm open-minded about it.
Wouldn't that be a contradiction?
Well, how would that be a contradiction?
Because if something is not what it is, then that's literally a performative contradiction.
Well, no, because we're not talking about what it is. We're talking about what is presented to you. So, for
The
example,
law of identity is what it is.
Q has never watched The Matrix. Everyone is familiar to this concept nowadays.
the law of
That
identity
A
is what it
is
is.
A and always will be A. It can't be anything other than itself. So the question
Yeah,
again
but
becomes, all the
presuming
conditionals which lead up to this
Sure.
must be whatever they are.
yeah, but that's a pragmatic argument fundamentally. Because yes, it must be presuming itself, presuming we can make any positive use of language that relies upon terms meaning themselves, so that they can relate to each other as difference.
Well, the
but
terms
you
are
haven't.
just
But you
relating-
haven't.
Wait,
but you
the
haven't.
terms relating to themselves are relating to themselves because they're identifying the thing which is itself.
No, we identify them as themselves. Yes.
Because they are themselves. They can't be what they're not.
Well, there's such a thing as illusions, for example, right?
Yeah, but they're illusions. They can't be anything other than that.
Yeah, but they would. Okay, but the point I'm getting at here.
Now, well, answer to this, that how could you have this discussion? Everything that you have said has affirmed the law of identity. Every single thing that you
I
have
agree.
said has affirmed the law of identity.
No,
How
I
in the world
agree
could you
with
say
I
it's not
agree with that.
objectively True?
Well, I agree with that, but what I'm getting at here is the condition of speech and argument categorically being the law of identity. Obviously, to use that in order to prove the law of identity would be arguing in a circle. We have to presume it. But
Oh
crucially,
my god.
us having to presume it is not a back way of saying that therefore it's obviously true in some extra human
You don't have to
sense.
presume.
What about Ukrainian Orthodoxy?
it.
But you do.
Go
It's
ahead and
foundational.
argue
It's a
without
first
the
principle.
presumption.
How would you do so?
Yeah, you can't. You can't.
But that's my point.
That doesn't mean that you have to presume that
We
it's
agree
true.
with each other. I'm
I'm
just a few
saying that
steps
it
ahead
just
of you here.
is true.
Okay. Let's get to the God part, okay? We're gonna,
Yeah,
gonna
let's
circle
get
this
to
drain all
God.
night.
Okay. Well, so the thing
Okay, I
is
gotta get
that
some water.
when we're
I gotta get some water, and because my throat is, I don't know, weird. My throat is just weird like that. So I'm gonna get some water. And when I get the water, I'm gonna, you know what I'm gonna do. You know what I'm up to. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Get your friends in. I'm muted. I decided to be good and to drink water instead of just sodas all the time. I actually didn't just decide it. Karasu made me. Karasu demanded that I drink water instead of soda, so I had to, you know, listen. Two orders. Had to listen to reason. So if you think I should drink more sodas, take it up with Karasu. Okay, let's go.
talking about Christian nationalism.
Okay.
Or Christian populism, things like this. And I agree, we went off the rails. It was kind of fun.
It was
I'll
fun.
admit it
I
was
enjoyed
fun.
this.
Okay, but when we're talking about Christian populism, Christian nationalism, things like this, ultimately, it doesn't really matter.
Populism is not the same as nationalism.
If you think God is fake or God is real, all right? Ultimately, that's kind of irrelevant. What I'm really looking for is to whether or not you can argue against the effects that are brought in by what Christianity brings in, even if the God part of it is totally false. To me, that's seemingly the most irrelevant part from your position.
Well, I mean, I got two responses to that. The first is, if all this is not true, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. But secondly,
If all this is what?
Also, you're white. That's the second response. I used to drink more soda, but I recently started switching to orange juices because it's so much healthier and I need to improve my diet. I'm eating this. That's not healthy.
big pardon?
No, I didn't hear what you said. I'm
Oh,
sorry. If all
well,
of this
well,
is what?
as if all of this is fake, then let us, as the apostle said, eat and drink, for tomorrow we die.
If you find me a debate opponent for today that I can debate, that will call into my show to debate me, then do it, and I will debate.
But leaving that aside,
We're gonna do a whole stream, which will be called the preparation to challenge either Loner Box, or we can also challenge Destiny to a debate. Because it seems like both of these people don't believe that the Holodomor was a genocide. So we can challenge either of these people. Who should I challenge? Loner Box or Destiny? I don't have a disagreement with Boy Meets Meanie, I think. Write in the chat, Destiny or Loner Box.
if it is the case that it is irrelevant to you whether or not, like, the metaphysical claims undergirding the promise of
No,
salvation.
it's not irrelevant to me. It's irrelevant to the position of Christian nationalism.
Fair. So let's, if it's irrelevant to the position of Christian nationalism, whether or not the promise of salvation has any truthfulness to it, whether or not it has any like reality, whether or not in fact you're as doomed as everybody else, regardless of what creed you follow.
Destiny would be funnier.
My immediate question is, why Christian nationalism?
I'm not
then?
so
Why not
sure.
invent a new creed that does away with all the inconveniences and all the inconvenient
That would be
history?
our first conversation. And I'm pretty sure Destiny does speak to small people. So there's actually a non-zero chance that he would debate me. So, I don't know. Would it be funnier? Karasu. Karasu's my... What's it called? What's the word? What's the English word? Producer. As my producer, who should I talk to? Destiny or Loner Box? He just wants to use the religion as a tool to cause fear. Or it's hell for you. True. I'm reading up on genocide. This such a sad I mean, it is inherently a sad topic, but did you know Raphael Lemkin, the person that I abstain. Don't abstain. Tell me what you think. Did you know that when Lemkin died, first of all, when he was dying, when he was on his deathbed, he said his opinion was that his whole genocide convention failed. You know? That his whole genocide thing failed. And that a world was coming where everybody would just get away with genocide. And the sad thing is that he was sort of correct. That's the sad thing. Lemkin was sort of correct on this. It's really depressing. And the other thing is that only 6 people came to his funeral. 6 people came to his funeral. Even though he created such an important thing as the Genocide Convention, he created the word genocide. 6 people came to his funeral. That is so depressing. So sad. And he worked so hard, he sacrificed so much to push through with the whole genocide thing to the UN. God. So Lonerbox is way better as a person to talk with, I guess. The point isn't genocide existing. The point is that there's a failure to properly prosecute or even charge those who are responsible for the genocide. That's the failure. That countries just do genocide willy-nilly and just deny it. There you go. I deny it. What are you gonna do? Like China or Israel. Ridiculous and sad. I don't know. What are you gonna do? Yeah, Lonerbox at least approaches people and debates in good faith. Like, it begs the question, sort of. Like, it makes me question why would we even prefer the UN definition over the others of genocide if its legal power is questionable in many cases. There are like 50 different definitions of genocide in academia, but people usually defer to the UN definition because it has the most prestige and because it has, at least in theory, well, not in theory, but it has the most legal power. But, you know, in practice, it becomes pretty impotent in a lot of cases.
And so on and so forth, but keeps all the stuff that produces the behaviors that you want to see in
It's
society.
a phenomenal question, actually. And it's been tried over and over and over again, where people have tried to make countless versions of this, like the Schofield Bible, which does exactly that. It takes all of those good parts of Christianity and tries to implement them. But for some reason, human beings seem to be hardwired towards theism. Oddly enough, even evolutionists seem to agree that this is true. They seem to be hardwired towards this behavior. And
Where have
seemingly,
they located these wires?
I said, well, so I'm not talking about a thing which is anything external of observable postulation. So they're saying that if evolution is true, and I'm assuming you think it is, right? Or real or whatever metric of truth you use, you think it's true
Sure.
enough. Okay, so if you do think that evolution is true,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Sophie. I mean, how many of the perpetrators of the Bosnian genocide were brought to justice? Or the Rwandan genocide? Or the Rohingya? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sudan. Syria. Oh yeah. You just mentioned Myanmar. Yeah. True. True and real. Actually, when it comes to Tamil Sri Lanka. When it comes to Rohingya is the like, that's the Myanmar, right? Genocide. That's the Myanmar one, right? Yeah, that's Myanmar. So there is actually a case going on right now. There is a case going on when it comes to the Myanmar one, because Burma apparently charged Myanmar with genocide against the Rohingyans, and the thing is apparently the thing is ongoing. Apparently it wasn't dismissed. That one is apparently, supposedly, apparently that's actually ongoing, because Burma has filed in a charge of genocide. And it's one of the countries that ratified the convention. So we'll see where that goes, right? I'm certainly going to sort of follow this and see where that goes. And there are some insurrectionist freedom fighters in Myanmar. Myanmar is a very messy place right now. Damn. Myanmar is quite messy right now. Hope something comes from it and some perpetrators are brought to justice, although I believe the genocide is currently ongoing. It is ongoing, and the populace is pretty favorable to it. It's like a whole anti-Muslim thing going on. It's messed up. It's a long story. People are being agitated. Pogroms have been happening. Like the Rohingyans are basically just treated like people from Bangladesh. In case of Sri Lanka, they decided the circumstances no longer there to investigate even for war crimes. That sucks. I will have to look into. I'll have to look into the Sri Lanka thing. We'll have to look into some texts about the Sri Lankan one. But that really sucks, you know? It really sucks when that happens. And that just proves what I said, that the convention proves to be impotent in many cases, you know? It was supposed to be this big thing that would not allow for countries to just do what they want, but yeah. But in reality, self-interests of countries simply won over that. Like, for example, the US did not ratify the convention during Lemkin's lifetime because it was actually afraid that it would be scrutinized for its treatment of black people. And rightfully so. So, yeah. It's a whole messed up thing. Wow, we're going on a whole tangent about genocides, aren't we? But it's a topic that I've been studying a lot lately in preparation for the whole Holodomor thing. I'm getting my basics on the topic. Did you know that before Lemkin coined the term genocide, even before World War II, he was already working on new crimes? And what became later genocide, he was working on two new crimes. They were called the law of vandalism, which meant the crime of the destruction of cultural heritage of a given place, which Lemkin considered to be a loss for the entire population of the earth. Like, if cultural heritage of a particular place is destroyed, whole humanity loses in some way. And so the entirety of humanity should be interested in punishing a crime of destruction of cultural heritage of any particular place. That's the crime of vandalism. And the second, more importantly, was the crime of barbarism. And the crime of barbarism basically encapsulated all of the points that became what constitutes a genocide. It was that just before the Holocaust happened, he called it barbarism, and after the Holocaust happened, sort of decided that the term barbarism is not enough to sort of describe the crime. But in the earlier version, the word was the crime of barbarism. Isn't that interesting? And then it becomes genocide. Genos, people, and side, like homicide. Tamil minority. Yes, Karasu did write this. Tamil Sri Lanka, yeah. There are so many interesting things about genocide, which is why you have to have all of your theoretical bases covered before you jump into a big debate about the Holodomor. Okay, let's continue. In case of Sri Lanka, they decided to, yeah.
You, by the way,
Then
just out of curiosity.
No.
Okay.
No. So if you do think that evolution is true, then we must have evolved to be Christians through natural selection.
What? No, that's not what it means. That's not what it means. It means, at the best, it means that we evolved to have some sense of religiosity, not to be Christian in particular. That's a little bit of a leap, Andrew. People didn't evolve for their specific religions. Sinhalese majority had been targeting Tamils. I have to read about this. I'm too ignorant about these things. I have to read about those genocides a lot more. I feel like I'm a lot too ignorant about these things. That's not how natural selection works. What? True.
Selection, right?
Through natural selection. I thought there was a whole book called Acts in which specific actions were taken that caused the conversion eventually of an empire that spread a creed throughout the world, often at the edge of the sword and with a large amount of technology. And
That would be natural selection, right?
No? That would not be natural. What? Oh, God. Andrew Wilson does not know what natural selection means. That's the weirdest and dumbest thing I've ever heard. It is so good example how cultural genocide enters into physical genocide. Yeah? Can you give me any materials to read about that particular genocide? The whole act started around trying to erase Tamil cultural heritage. I mean, that is what China is doing, right? With its Muslim population. In Xinjiang. That's how you pronounce it? Like, that's what China is doing, sort of. It's not killing the population, so to speak. It's simply re-educating the population. Oh, and sterilizing, of course. Of course. I have to read about it. Yeah, the Uyghurs, yeah. The Uyghurs, yeah. And that's a super example of the convention being just impotent. Super China is so super example of that. It's very weird because China is discriminating against Islam only against the Uyghurs. In the rest of China, many things that are forbidden for the Uyghurs is like just permitted for the rest of China. That's such a double standard in law. Was burned in the Nova Library with the oldest Tamil documents kept there. There is a narrative around that Tamil had been bought only by British into Sri Lanka and they are not natives, therefore. Oh! So it's similar to... So in a sense, it's similar to the Myanmar one with the Rohingyans who said that they were not really natives, but they just were from Bangladesh. Sort of. But they're not even citizens. That feels similar to that. There's also something about China and Uyghurs that Uyghurs had been a good ally to Chinese Empire before. Kind of. Well. You should be free. Free to separate from China, to be honest. But that would screw up the Silk Road, wouldn't it, for China? There's part that too that there was Tamil coming from Tamil Nadu, India during colonial times to Sri Lanka too, but Tamil has been living there, right? Yeah, I will definitely want to read about that a lot, about that genocide. Because, well, there are a couple of reasons. One reason is just because it's just interesting to know, and it's important to know. And the second reason is to understand how different types of genocides happened, how they developed, and sort of what forms they took, you know? Because genocides happen very differently from case to case, as I've learned. Tamil genocide went really bad when Indian peacekeepers did mess up Stellar. Many Tamils hated them a lot. They... Right, yeah. They violated Tamil women. Hello, Waterworks. Welcome to the stream. We're discussing genocide and listening to President Sunday's debate. Will you react to what? Will you react to what? I'm reacting to 3 debates today. This one, a Destiny one, and a Dylan one. So what do you want me to react to, Waterworks? Or do you want me to continue reacting to this? I'm gonna try and understand what you're saying. Their excuse is the Uyghurs are terrorist threat to Chinese security because the East, the Turkestan separatist movement, is kind of like the war on terror. Yeah, but keep in mind, to your stuff, What sort of stuff would you like me to react? What stuff do you do? What do you make? What do you make? Also, keep in mind the violence of the Uyghurs was caused by by terrorists from China. Okay? What do you want me to react to here? I'm not sure what you want me to do with this. Do you react to comedy? I mean, I can. Video of stuffed animals. I'll check your channel and see, okay. How many subscribers have you got? 52. I guess I can react to a few of the things. I guess we can take a look. By the way, terrorism is a lot of time used. Tamils had been targeted due to danger of terrorism. I'll see you, whether it works. Yeah, it's more politically charged channel. I mean, I'll take a look. I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to take a look today, but... I'm not sure what it's about, but we'll... It's kind of embarrassing. Oh. Sorry. I mean, we can lighten things up with some comedy. Yeah, branding people as terrorists is a very common tactic to sort of stigmatize people. I mean, look at Israel. All Palestinian people are branded as terrorists. That's a good question. Link the thing that you want to be reacted to. Yeah. That's a good idea, Karasu. That's a good idea. Okay, I guess we can continue for now. We've talked about genocide for a bit, and now we can continue.
Would that be a natural selection? I think the whole idea behind natural selection is that the environment selects for what traits are passed.
Well, the environment does not select, per se. The environment shapes, sort of, you know? I think Thunderfoot, the creator, said it pretty well when he said that the genome is plastic to its environment, or something like that. That in a way that it sort of fits to its environment. So the environment does not also select, per se. Yeah, I agree with Karasu, yeah. Absolutely. Don't be shy.
Part of the environment. We're not external to environment.
Well, I agree. You're an excellent interactionist. But I guess more to the point. So your argument, therefore, would be essentially Brett Weinstein's argument about circumcision. It has demonstrated survival value, and therefore it's a positive adaptation.
Well, that wouldn't be my argument. I'm saying
if it's nice, I will cover it. Yeah. Especially since it's not a stuffed animal, it's a pen animal, but I've got a nice kitty.
Saying that from the perspective of the evolutionists, and this is true, that you must have evolved to be a Christian via natural selection. If natural selection just means that the kind of weak are culled out and the strong end up surviving, Now, this is kind of a bit of a reductionist way of looking at it, but I think the principle
agree.
is basically sound. Okay, so when you're looking at kind of anything that doesn't survive,
Reductive.
right? That's natural selection. Anything that doesn't survive, whatever remains, that's natural selection.
Well, it seems to me
That is a bit reductive, yeah. That's not exactly how that works.
that the distinction between natural selection and intelligent design is precisely that. One is not conditioned by the interventions of intelligent agents. So as soon as you're talking about something that happens in the context of people making decisions and scheming and organizing in society, you're not dealing with natural selection. There
Well,
is
what's
like
what's so natural about that selection? It seems like that's like saying if wolves like get together to take down a rabbit, that's not natural selection.
It's not. No. When wolves get together to hunt a rabbit, it's not natural selection. No. That's not. No, that's not how that works.
you're onto something there. But leaving that aside, the point is, the reason why you would refer to natural selection in this case is to say that there is something intrinsic to the thing that confers on it in a state of total, more or less total chaos, total randomness, a survival advantage such that it is conditioned to survive in a particular environment.
Oh
One of the
boy.
reasons why we know that,
Well, that would be everything, right?
yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be determinative of the total range of features of a thing, though. So, for example, even in biological organisms, there are vestigial organs that have no purpose. And so my case
Yeah, like
here
the appendix, right? The appendix has no purpose. We don't even know what the purpose was exactly. Although apparently it has some I don't know. Who, me? No. I'm not Russian. Why do you think I'm Russian? Wait, what makes you think I'm Russian? I don't... I'm not, no. Should I be? I'm Polish. Polish Jewish. Like... I don't know. It said Russian mine karma and the thing. Oh. No, that's do you know what karma means? It means when someone does a thing and sort of justice comes back to them, you know? It means with like when a person does a bad thing and sort of the consequences of what they're doing come back to them, if that makes sense. Is that how you would describe karma? So it just has I'm going to discuss a topic about a Russian person later. You know? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very brutal topic, but very strangely karma-like topic. Karma is what goes around comes around. You act good, you get good fortune. You act bad, then you get bad fortune. It's interesting. It is? Yeah, I think it's interesting as well. Do you find what I'm reacting to interesting? The religious conversation? Are you finding this interesting as well? Mind you, I remember a few years ago at the bus stop, and a Ukrainian mom and her kid were waiting for the bus, and this woman was like, "Oh, so you're Russian?" And she kind of laughed and sighed it and just said, "No, Ukrainian is different." Where did that happen? Did it happen in the US? That would never happen in Poland. That would not happen in Poland. Ukrainian people have a very specific accent. You can tell. You can tell when you hear a Ukrainian person speaking that they're Ukrainian usually. You know? At least I can usually tell when I hear a Ukrainian person speaking Polish. The UK, damn. When I went back to the hospital after my break was over, my weekend break, I asked a girl on the street, how do I get to the hospital, because I forgot, and she was Ukrainian, so she had to switch her phone from Ukrainian to Polish, and then she checked on for me on the map how to get to the hospital. That's really nice. Are we watching this? Yeah, we're watching this.
Would be, are there not
We're watching a debate, and I'm reacting to the debate.
vestigial organs in Christianity that you can do away with? Not necessarily on the mold of the Schofield Bible, but like in principle, isn't that something you could simply do anyways? And isn't that something that has inevitably been done by the church itself when it canonizes or decanonizes
okay,
texts?
so to try to give as good faith of an answer to the question as I possibly can, I think I'm kind of understanding the totality of what you're asking here. Okay, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
As I give the answer,
Aww.
right? If it's not the answer that you were
Yeah,
after.
it was very nice.
But if you're asking, is there anything within Christianity which can be cut out? That's what you're saying. Is there
Yeah.
anything which is an externality which could be cut out? Well, a core tenet of Christianity is essentially the freedom of choice. You have to choose Christianity, or else, absent the choice of Christianity in the actual embrace of it, to be a Christian, which is why Christian nations generally are very tolerant of other people. We don't force people to accept.
Oh, come on, Andrew, you know better than that. That's not true. You know
That,
better than that.
Christ is your savior. That would be a contradiction, but that doesn't mean we can't enforce moral codes.
You're so full of surprises. You're a thoroughgoing liberal this entire time.
No, that's not liberalism.
That's
What I'm saying is that we're
It
not
is.
going to make. It's not. We're not
It
going to.
is.
We're not going to make the
I love President Sunday.
forced
Not romantically.
claim that you must believe this thing. Otherwise, that would be contrary to the religion itself. So when you're saying, is there anything that you can cut out? You could live your entire life as a secularist, absent Christianity in total. And that's what's going on with many people now. I just think the result of that seems to be really bad, ultimately. And also, it doesn't really answer the question of why Christians couldn't enforce the moral codes that they want to enforce or be in charge.
Well, I guess that is the question, isn't it? Because once again, like, the conditions that you characterize as your success have already once obtained, and the result that you think is so bad is its result. How do you evade that? Just leaving all that.
True. How do you square that circle, Andrew? How do you square that circle? You cannot. Andrew.
Back stuff aside.
I don't
Andy.
understand. Maybe rephrase the synopsis there.
Oh
Sure.
boy.
So you've already had a situation which the overwhelming majority, and you've even proposed that the Anglican Church was essentially the same as the Catholic Church, and for all intents and purposes here.
No, I didn't.
Did, but well, okay, whatever. The point is,
I didn't.
the point is, you had global Christian hegemony of some stripe for a very, very, very long time, and yet nonetheless, it gave rise not just to liberalism, but to all of its after effects that you're decrying now. How do you avoid that again? Let's say you win.
And
how do you avoid
again,
that?
the methodology is not whether or not Christianity may go through further upheavals. That would be like you saying, I'm going to abandon the worldview of progressivism because there could be upheavals which lead to conservatism again. That would be insanity.
Well, I mean, weirdly
makes
enough,
no
I think
sense.
that'd actually be a very strong case. If, for example, I take conservatism to be an ideology that is detrimental both to human morals and maybe to the conditions of life on this planet, I think they are. I think there would actually be a very, if for whatever
I think so too. They're pretty detrimental.
reason you managed to actually determine that with certainty, I think it'd take an extreme degree of arrogance to claim that. But if you could, I think it'd actually be a
I
very,
could.
very strong argument in favor of at least temporarily abandoning progressive ethics.
Yeah, but I mean, this is theoretical both ways. So you're saying if theoretically some sort of Christian upheaval could happen again,
Yeah.
isn't it worth abandoning the worldview because there could be some unintended consequences? It's like, no, that would be true of any worldview you could point to.
Well,
And
I
none
mean,
of them are
if-
going to abandon the worldview that they see as being the correct one because there could be some unforeseen consequences or upheavals or weird shit that happens within the purview.
Weird
I mean,
shit.
that's kind of insane. It's like trying to adjust for unknown knowns.
Well,
It's
what
like,
if they're-
you know,
well, what
like
if they're-
Rumsfeld
what if
said,
they're
right? It's a
not-
known unknown?
Well, these aren't.
What are the unknown knowns? As opposed to what? The known knowns?
This
They
isn't
are
something.
unknowns.
Well, no, because this isn't something that hasn't simply happened in the past. This is something that's happened in the past, which we have the clear memory of. So even for example,
Oh, okay. Well, then abandon secularism because they may make something more powerful than nuclear bombs, and abandon science because of that too.
What? I don't.
there's
What?
a line of argumentation in favor of that, but leaving that
I mean,
aside,
doesn't that seem counterintuitive to you to say we
Counterintuitive?
should abandon science because they're probably going to make something in the future that's far more destructive than a nuclear bomb? In fact, I'd say that there's more evidence that science is going to make something more powerful than a nuclear bomb in my lifetime and in your lifetime than there is that if Christians take over, it's going to lead to a force schism.
well, for example, through science, we developed antibiotics. Very good. Reduced our rate of death considerably. But by
Right,
the same
so-
token,
so
we
you're
also
saying that
created
even
we
if
also
there's
created
consequences-
we also
Yep.
created well, not just unknown consequences, though, known consequences. So, for example,
Yeah,
there
so
may-
you're saying that you ultimately within your ideology there can be so much that
Oh,
are
Lord.
good or that you think is good that will lead to good that even if there's unintended consequences, it's still worth doing.
Not exactly. I'm actually using this as an analogy for yours. Because given what you said about Christian nationalism, for it not really mattering whether or not God actually exists, or whether the reports about
What a
Christ's
long
doings in the
debate.
Bible are true, etc., whether or not like that is actually
1,000
essential.
years of
Let's
death.
use that language instead. Whether that's essential for it being a good move.
Move.
If we know from history that it produces, or can at the very least produce, results that are detrimental to the goods that it does justify itself by, then it stands to reason that either we need a way to evade these, or there's something flawed in the system. Yeah?
You mean through the purview of ecclesiastical authority and the safeguards which are put in? Yeah, those safeguards are put in, but you're talking about, again, this would be the same criticism towards science. You would have to use the exact same criticism here and say, because so much science is methodologically flawed, and tons of social science for certain is, and then in applied science that you're probably going to create something at some point which is so fucking destructive it could wipe us all out.
Well,
We
not
should just abandon the pursuit altogether.
well, maybe the methodology's fine, but maybe it's a consequence of circumstance. This thing produces something that actually results in the termination of the possibility of doing more science in the future forever. If we kill ourselves because we've created a bunch of bacteria that are resistant to all of our treatments, or if we destroy our atmosphere, or if we
Science
nuke
is just
ourselves out of
religion.
existence,
With extra steps.
that would not be a hooray for science, would it? That would be
Science is religion with extra steps. With vials and maths.
oh, if we had the capacity to retrospect at that point, maybe we should have restrained ourselves a little bit more. Maybe there were decisions that we made in hubris that were a
then
bad idea.
the criticism would still apply, which is if you're making that same criticism towards there could be unintended consequences which may lead to a fourth or fifth schism or sixth schism or whatever, then you would still have to apply
Well, not even
the
a
same
schism.
to the yeah,
Not
okay,
even a
well,
schism.
whatever the I'm just saying.
How
whatever
about
the
how about
unintended-
full on apostasy across the board? How about the total dissolution of belief in those things? Because all of their eggs.
That's
were put
worse
into
than the entire decimation of humanity via science.
if you're a Christian, it ought to be if you believe in that, because that's the damnation of the majority of
Hell
humanity's
will never
souls.
prevail against the church. That's what Christians know.
What's
So we know the gates of hell will never prevail against the church. So we know for sure. We
Well-
know that there's an eschaton. We
well,
know
that's-
that
well,
there's
that's
an
the-
end to it all. We understand all of this. From your purview, though, the criticism that you're making towards me actually applies to you.
Actually-
which is if the scientific pursuits that you're after are the most capable of creating the most damaging things to society
Oh, I'm not after
possible,
those, God, no.
why don't you abandon science? Yes, but the scientific pursuit will lead to this anyway.
Here's the problem. How do I want to put this? Give me a sec. Let me formulate this for you. Given a situation in which you find yourself, by dint of acquiring Christian rule across the board, you create the conditions of the total evacuation of genuine Christian belief, which seems like a possibility, since it seems to commit you to activities that are going to, like, test belief in any of these things to an extraordinary degree as a condition of maintaining the church itself.
This has happened.
It has.
It was called Arianism,
Yeah.
where most of the church became.
Well, I guess
you're
here's the question. I guess here's the question, Andrew. If the gates of hell prevail against it, was it ever really the church? And are you certain that you're actually endorsing what is the church?
Well, if the gates of hell prevail against it, I guess I would be wrong. My faith would be incorrect, and I'd have to adjust from there. But so far, it hasn't.
But what if there are very clear indications being given in
Point to
fairly
those indications.
they who live by the sword will die by the sword. If the church lives by the sword, it will die by the
Church
sword.
isn't living by the sword by making moral enforcement. That's not living by the sword.
How do you
They're
enforce
talking-
morality?
They're talking specific. Well, you would use force, but that's not
Well, you would use force, which is living by the sword. Dumbass.
living by the sword.
But if
That's,
somebody,
again,
but if somebody,
that's like
if
saying
somebody
if
is
a
obstinate,
Christian's a police officer.
if somebody is obstinate, well, I mean, they would be though. That's how force works.
Okay,
right?
well then are all police officers
Use the force, Luke. What does he think? That is the force. The force from Star Wars.
dying by the sword?
Well, metaphorically, a lot of them are, yeah.
What do you mean metaphorically?
They're
What do you mean?
Nobody
they're
really
not
carries
dying.
swords
No,
anymore. It'd
almost
be-
no
it'd be
police
other kinds
officers
of-
are dying by the sword, so they probably aren't living by the sword. When you're talking about that,
Oh my god. It's not literal. Oh my god. Well, people don't use swords anymore. Checkmate, atheist. Okay. Oh boy. I didn't see that coming. I've been beaten by this argument. God. Oh God. No more swords. Checkmate. Checkmate.
they're specifically
Checkmate. Mate.
saying that if you make your living as a killer, as a mercenary, as a person who goes and takes other people's lives,
Yes.
that's what you're making a living doing. Chances are pretty good that you're going to die by somebody else who makes
which
their
is
living doing the exact same thing.
which is what the state does specifically. And if you tie Christians to the rule of the state,
No.
then the fall of the state is now tied to the
So
fall
we
of
have to
Christianity as
distinguish.
well.
No.
Yeah, so we have to distinguish these
No.
two things. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No.
cut you off.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so we have to distinguish these two things. Enforcement of morality is not living by the sword. That is not it in any way. Even if I was to be like the most charitable I could be to your interpretation there, right? That would be like saying that if I discipline one of my kids, it's living by the sword. That makes no sense. That's an enforcement of morality. In this particular case, I am the state.
You don't have to use force to discipline your kids. That's a little bit of a self-report, isn't it? It's not a requirement to use force to discipline your kids. A what? Andrew, come on. You're self-reporting a bit.
State, right? They literally are
Wrong.
at my whim whenever
exactly.
I choose.
Not exactly,
no,
because
exactly.
as a father, I think you would agree, you would put the existence of your children over prolonging your own existence, yes?
Yeah, but I think that
Of course, but a
the-
state doesn't do that.
Yeah, but a Christian hierarchy does do that. They put the flock first. That's the whole point. And so-
No, what? Are you kidding me? Adrian Black, I wouldn't be surprised if that actually happened.
And we have a father.
Well,
too.
they put
Oh,
the
God.
They put
So
the
what I'm saying is,
well, hang on, slow down.
Go ahead.
They put the flock first, but they don't put every individual sheep before the flock, and it just so happens that the flock and who
Is the church.
is not the flock is determined by reference to what they determine to be endangering to the flock. And what endangers the flock is what goes against their specific interpretation of doctrine.
There can be
understanding of morality and so on and so forth.
instances. Okay, so there can be instances. Again, I'm going to try to be as charitable as I can be to your viewpoint here.
Okay.
There can be instance who is so fucking corrupted that they're just lunatic, something like this. Maybe they just like love to abuse corpses and to use some enforcement mechanism to remove them from the flock so they don't poison the rest of it. I can concede that something like that could be true and has happened in the past, certainly. But when you're talking about enforcement under those mechanisms, you're not talking about living by the sword. Living by the sword is a specific caricature of somebody like Ron Paul said. I remember this is years ago. Remember that mercenary? He got what was that guy's name? I can't remember his name. But he got famous because he was a world famous sniper, and he ended up going on a shooting range.
Chris Kyle?
Yeah, Chris
Yeah.
Kyle, right? Chris Kyle. He went on a shooting range, and he ended up the guy he was with shot him.
Yeah.
Right. And Ron Paul, he says, "Those who live by the sword die by the sword." Right. And there was a huge public uproar.
Yeah, that's not
about this.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I understand. But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is I'm trying to draw a parallel to you between warriors who live literally, okay, with their sword. That's what this is the attribution of. Now, there's other metaphorical ways to interpret this
Yeah.
too, but also specifically being an officer or somebody who's enforcing general morality. I don't think that that's living by the sword. I don't even think that that would be the way that you would perceive that.
God, YouTube is just killing my feed right now. I wouldn't. Well, the point I'm making is that the state, as such, when you talk about Christians ruling, you're talking about fundamentally them ruling in an international
Okay.
system of states. You're talking about them ruling
Whatever you
states. And
say.
states are that warrior that lives and dies by the sword, and steals and kills and pillages and so on and so forth. Even just to maintain their identity as the states they are now would be to inherit the ongoing action against the conquered
Don't
peoples that
forget
still
to donate.
exist in their territory, and to be party to that in an ongoing way into perpetuity. Like it seems to me like you're sorry, I'm distracted here because this freaking give me one second, one moment. God damn it! Okay, if I refresh this, maybe
Damn.
that'll work.
God damn it.
We're getting divine sanction here on my internet. One moment.
Oh no, President Sunday.
God, we're still at 0. Oh, we're at 1,000.
Well, he's
Whatever.
fixing internet.
Your guys are still.
You tell me, because we don't have time and I'm getting tired. What do you prefer, Destiny or Dylan debate? We only have time for one more. I thought I'd do 3. But I I underestimated how long this one is, and I overestimated my power supply. So, which one do you want me to do? Destiny or Dylan? Write in the chat. What did Dylan debate? Some two weirdos. That's all I know. Dylan? Some two weird people. Dylan. You don't like Destiny much, do you? Okay, then.
Oh, you're still connected, right? Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we can still hear you. Okay.
No love
you're-
for
We're a little choppy,
Destiny.
but we can hear you.
Okay. This is just really frustrating. I think there might be a
Destiny's a
windstorm
poo.
outside. It seems to me
Destiny.
like what you would effectively be doing by getting Christians into a position
We'll go with
of
Dylan.
rule in the present
Oh,
state
sorry,
system
Vodka. You have been
is
beaten
attaching Christians against
decisively,
their own ethical
so-
values to a set of practices they would have to engage in order to maintain themselves once in that position of rule that would ultimately in the long run be completely deleterious not just to the Christian church's own
good and you will
internal
like
ethos
it.
and to its
Oh,
own
God.
ethical commitments such as they are
Will I like it?
but would probably also as a consequence
worried.
of that really brazen hypocrisy result in future generations completely abandoning it as has happened historically.
Yeah, that's an assertion, though, and we're
It's a
quibbling
projection.
right now.
I think you're
we're
rolling
quibbling
some
right
dangerous
now
dice
and
here.
fighting over whether or not this is actually going against any type of ethical code of Christianity. I would have to refer you back to your own words, where you said earlier in this debate that you think that Christianity to
taking
you
HRT.
means ethically. If somebody is sexually assaulting my wife, that I'm not in any way, shape, or form allowed to defend her from that happening or stop that from happening. In fact, I guess I should probably offer them myself next, right? And I don't think that this is the intent or that you even really believe that about
Well, I don't believe
Christianity.
that. Oh, about Christianity? Once again, it depends on what you're referring to.
Well, I'm referring to your belief about what you think Christians believe, because that was an absurd statement. I think that where this passivity comes from is from you kind of using this bad analysis. And again, I'm trying to speak
Yeah.
to you, at you, from your purview and my own, right?
Thank you, Deftly Ill, for $10. Thank you. And it did not crash the entire thing because we're not playing Spyro the Dragon. Thank you. Thank you.
But I think that you're using this kind of bad analogy of thinking that Christianity means passive, and it's not. It's not a tradition
when
of
you say-
pacifism.
When you say that Christianity doesn't mean pacifism,
Passive
what I take
aggressive,
you to mean
like I like
is
to
that
be.
there is a reasonable interpretation and embellishment on the text by a reasonable and authoritative group of people that allows, for example, all of these seemingly unreasonable statements, if carried to like some extreme degree, to be sort of modified so that under conditions, say, you're witnessing an innocent person being brutalized or raped or some such, you can intervene and even use lethal violence to protect them or what have you. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. However, the problem is if you're going to refer
Yeah,
to...
that's bad framing, though.
Do you think so? How would you
I think
correct it?
so. Well, because your framing is saying, you're actually saying, I do believe that this is what this means, but I think that you're interpreting it to mean something else because it's good for you.
No, I'm perfectly allowing...
All right, gentlemen, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I've got to stop it here. Listen, I extended the debate
Oh.
by 40 minutes past our scheduled time because our audience was so
Demanded
gracious
it.
and generous
With
to
money.
pay for that. And is that going to cut
Oh.
into our call-in segment? And does that make me a prick? Yes. But
I would also extend the stream time if people would be generous enough to pay for it.
regardless, we do have to end the debate somewhere. There's never a good time.
If you take a
So-
second to say thank you to the moderator, I appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
And I hope you felt like you were treated well in the Crucible present Sunday.
I do. Thank you. This was a fun conversation, and
Yeah.
thank you.
Well,
Zen.
you'll
Yeah,
each get. you'll-
donos crash Spyro. I actually, when I play Spyro the Dragon, donations crash everything. They crash Discord. They crash OBS. They crash the sound, and the game, of course. They crash everything. $100 to skip the theory. Yes. I have theory to read to you. If someone pays me $100, I have theory to read. I will read it. It's called... Well, that's a surprise. But I do have theory. So, any takers?
You'll each get closing statements, though. So, given that Andrew went first and Sunday you forfeited your opening statement, we're going to let Andrew get the last word here.
You know
So,
what? I'm going to
Sunday-
exercise my Christian charity, and I'm going to forfeit my closing statement to allow one or two people to call in.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Andrew, if you want to, you can go.
They don't crash things. Deathly Ill donated $10 now and it did not crash anything. I have to play Crash. I have to play Spyro. Only when I play Spyro do donations crash anything. But yes, please donate. Please donate. Please donate. Was this debate worth having in your opinion, Lucy? Yeah, I think President Sunday did really well, actually. Yeah, I think it went okay. Yeah. I think it went okay, not thanks to Andrew Wilson, but I just think that President Sunday did so well that it was worth it. He made it worth it. I mean, he made good arguments. He made a good case. So yeah.
Go ahead with your closing statement. We'll give you the normal time, 7 minutes.
I am going full Nietzschean and taking advantage of my closing statement. So,
Fucking based.
come on, it's funny, fucking funny. Anyway,
I think was painful. Well, you know.
all right, so back to this. So I mean, this
We're
kind
gonna
of
do
went
the
all over
Dylan
the
one
place, but I think
next.
that there's a fundamental distinction. I think that President Sunday, at least in this case, gets to walk away having a
I
different
think Sunday
perspective
really did a good Goto approach. Yeah.
on what he thought that Christian nationalism, futurism even was. So I think that that's going to ultimately be
How
good for
dare
him
you.
and helping him at least understand this side. I'd never actually heard an argument against any of the morality of Christianity. I heard some bad interpretations, which led to absurd conclusions, such as, you know, your wife can get sexually assaulted. When it came down to theft, he didn't think that any forms of theft were. There's all sorts of different kind of rabbit holes we went down there, which kind of shows me that his interpretation of Christianity being pacifistic is just nonsense, right? None of that makes any sense, and it's never made any sense. Ultimately, I think the exchange was good, and I think it was good faith. But I'm going to kind of end with this in my closing. There's absolutely no reason, and to date, I still have not heard a single compelling argument or reason why it is that Christians should not be in charge, why it is that Christians should not
I
be
think
able
so.
to exercise their moral rule on other people, why it is that secular rule is superior to Christian rule,
It's less bigoted
Or-
for one.
a single argument for even what the problem with Christianity is exactly. Not really anything. We kind of went through the Socratic method, and I was trying to be as good faith and charitable as I could, and I think my opponent was doing the same thing. But ultimately, I didn't hear any argument against my opening and my outline for what it is that I perceive as being good for Christian futurism. He brought up a critique of unintended consequence, but that applies to his worldview too. He brought up numerous critiques about force, but those also apply to his worldview. He brought up a critique that enforcement itself was living by the sword. Not only do I not think so, but I think that if we really did kind of a deeper debate just on that, we could kind of destroy that pretty quickly. So
I see.
ultimately, I
challenge?
didn't.
Sounds like a challenge to me.
Yeah, I would. Now, I'm not a Christian apologist. I'm a political debater. That's what I've always hung my hat on, though Christianity comes up from time to time, and I do like engaging in those. But I'm not a Christian apologist, but I would take that debate because I think it's a slam dunk. But ultimately, not a single argument. Didn't hear really a single argument for why
Not
it
a
is that my
single
worldview
one.
was wrong. So maybe from Sunday's perspective, he just wanted to understand it more as a portion of the debate. Again, he was very, I think, charitable. I didn't feel like he was bad faith at any point in the debate. I thought ultimately it was a productive conversation. I look forward to having more of them. So from all of us here at the Crucible, I'd like to extend that to you Sunday, and thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
I will take you up on that, I think.
Well done.
All right. Well, thank you for that closer. It's not very Nietzschean of you to give up 50% of your closing statement time.
Well, I'm a
Dowager, I
Taoist,
must
not a
say.
Nietzschean.
That was the Christian in me coming out.
Right. Yeah. Thank you guys all who tuned in and sent your support, all the super chats, memberships. Very much appreciated. So
Amazing.
thank you guys for sticking it out. Thank you, Andrew and Sunday, for being
I
here.
heard people criticize President Sunday afterwards.
Want to let Sunday
lively
shout his channel out real quick?
Yeah, before we go, President Sunday, take a second. Shout your channel out one more time. I know you mentioned you're doing an after stream if people want to. Yeah, we can tell. We can tell because you didn't beat me, motherfucker. They can find you.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Wilson, the host of
Okay, we're done. All right. Next.